Welcome to another episode on the Life Matters Plus One YouTube channel. Thank you to my return viewers and welcome to my new viewers. Here on Life Matters Plus One YouTube channel, we talk about all things in life centered around mental health, trying to do my part and help normalize a highly stigmatized topic. So sit back and enjoy this next episode on the Life Matters Plus One channel. LMP1 family, back with another video, back with another podcast entitled Triggers. So triggers serves as messengers and protectors. They let you know when you may need to set a boundary or where you may need to continue to heal. They are physical reminders for your body to keep you safe when confronted with extreme stress and reminders of trauma. So I want to discuss 5 types of trauma: emotional, physical setting, presence of others, activities, and verbal. So emotional triggers. Emotional triggers occur when feeling a certain emotion that is associated with your trauma. You may be experiencing an emotional trigger if you get transported back or experience a memory or flashback, often when you feel a certain emotion like anger, frustration, grief, joy, relaxed, and or anxious, to name a few. So just pay attention how you emotionally react to things, and see is a certain environment, a certain person, a certain thing, a certain word or touch or anything triggers something emotionally that is related to a previous trauma. So physical setting. Physical setting trigger occurs when a certain location or type of setting is associated with trauma. For example, at a party, work, a certain friend's house, and or a city or small town. So just like your emotional triggers, there are going to be places that remind you of a previous trauma. So be aware of that, and if, like I previously said before, if you can't avoid it, develop some coping mechanisms so that you don't get too far gone in that moment when it does trigger you. And even go as far as to maybe tell someone you can trust, a family member or a friend, like, hey, when I go to this place, I get triggered because of whatever it might be. Maybe you don't want to tell them the details, but just let them know. So maybe they know what is going on and can kind of help you through that. Presence of others trigger. Presence of others trigger occurs when a certain person or type of person is associated with your trauma. For example, your boss, police officers, and or parents. And of course, the list can go on with that. And sometimes it's not even the person, right? It could be that this person reminds you of a person that triggers that trauma. Their behavior reminds you of them. Something they say, something they do. So it's not always necessarily that individual, because we know that individual more than likely will, send your temperature to a boiling hot. But sometimes it's just someone who has the similarity of them. And sometimes that's a red flag. If you're getting those vibes and triggered of a previous trauma from someone else, then that maybe not be a person you want to associate with. And the final one, second to the final one, activities. Activity triggers occur when a certain activity or action associated with your trauma. For example, working from home. That may be big for some people, considering this past year plus now. Playing sports, going to a party, walking at night, and or not having anything to do, just being still or bored. And the final one, verbal trigger. So verbal triggers occur when a certain language, words, or tone of voice is associated with your trauma. For example, excessive questioning, volume of voice, name calling, saying no, and or compliments. So again, the triggers that we discussed here were emotional, physical setting, presence of others, activities, verbal, and sometimes you may feel all these triggers at once. You may hit a physical setting, then that emotional trigger kicks in, the presence of someone kicks in, what you're doing at this physical setting may kick in, and then what someone says could be a trigger. So be very in tune to those, because the better you can get ahead of them, the better you can cope. And coping with it is going to be different from person to person, because everyone's trauma is different. Everyone reacts to trauma different. Everyone reacts to trigger trauma differently. But know this, you are not broken if you have triggers. Listen to your body and the message your triggers are telling you. Give yourself the same love and compassion you give to others. Because remember, sometimes it's reminding you of a boundary you may need to set, or that you need to continue to heal, but it does not mean you are broken. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.